Good Friday service. And I'm going to just start with a little bit of music. Give people an opportunity to arrive. Welcome. We're going to be reflecting on the crucifixion of Jesus Christ that led to the resurrection, that taught us all that there's no such thing as death. So we'll give people a little bit of an opportunity to come to join us. Good evening. That's called Thou Art Worthy. We are gathering together for reflection and contemplation. We are reflecting on our own lives and our own trials and resurrections, and we'll be doing some praying. We will be reading from the Bible. We'll be reading the story leading up to the crucifixion. And I urge us tonight to have the people in Ukraine in our deepest, most fervent prayers. Humans have always suffered from their own crucifixions, and we're experiencing that now in what we're witnessing in Ukraine. So let's keep them in our prayers, and let me play a little bit more music. If you can kind of get in a quiet place, maybe somebody might want to join you. I have a moon. It is a full moon, and I just want to light it. I don't know why it went out. Let's see if we can light the moon. And I'll play another tune, and then we'll get formally started. I just like to give people a little bit of time to show up. Thank you for being here. We're going to pray, and then we're going to read from the Bible, and we're just reflecting. There'll be some more song, and then we'll close. I'm thinking about half hour to 45 minutes, and let us begin with a reading. I'm going to read from Ernest Holmes' Words That Heal. And Ernest Holmes is the founder of the Science of Mind, so I'm going to read this. When Jesus gathered his fellow followers together at the Last Supper, washed their feet, and told them to love one another and not to be afraid, he knew that he was about to leave them personally and physically. But they would not be alone, because the Comforter would come. He was preparing to lay down his human life and pass from their physical gaze, but he was leaving in his place a realization of that divine presence which each of us must discover for ourselves. Jesus knew this to be the only salvation there is. He had shown them the way already. They must follow it. Yet a little while, and the world seeth me no more, but ye see me. And now comes a revelation of the great mystery of life. I am in my Father, and ye in me, and I in you. The Christ, the Son of God, is always in the Father, and we are always in the Christ, and the Christ is always in us. The Father and the Son are one, undivided and indivisible forever. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. If there is anything we need, it is peace of mind. Without it, life is not worthwhile. Peace of mind comes only when there is a personal and collective sense of security. This sense of security comes when we have a sense of belonging to the universe. Jesus knew that no one is or ever can become sufficient unto himself or herself. It is when the soul returns to its source and finds its true center and pure spirit that it enters into the peace which the wise one said the world cannot give. He knew of a calm back of confusion. He knew of a love that consumes hate, of a unity that must dissolve separateness, a peace that passes human comprehension, because he knew God. He knew God as the very being of his own life, the heart of his heart, the soul of his soul. He knew God intimately. His sense of God was warm and colorful, almost dramatic. He did not know God as a judge, for he knew that the law of cause and effect is the judge. He knew that there is justice without judgment. He did not know God as a tribal deity. He knew God as a universal presence centered in his own soul. Jesus knew God as presence and person. There is a difference between a belief in God and a feeling that we are in the divine presence. It is this difference which is the dividing line between entering into spirit and viewing it as a thing apart. It is when we enter into the spirit that we know God. No one can enter in for us. We all must make the great discovery for ourselves. So I just wanted to read that from Ernest Holmes from Words That Heal Today. And next, I'm reading from the Gospel according to Matthew. So take a deep breath and get centered, and I'm going to read this to you so maybe you can think about the story and reflect on the words. We left off last night where the disciples had fallen asleep when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he asked them to stay awake, kind of bear witness to his grief and his anxiety, and to just kind of, be with him as he prayed. And so I'll pick it up from there, and we're going to read the story of the crucifixion. This is Matthew, starting at chapter 26, and let's see, verse 40. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." When he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd, armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus replied, "Do what you came for, friend." Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. "Put your sword back in its place," Jesus said to him, "for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way?" In that hour, Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.'" Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." "You have said so," Jesus replied, "but I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look, now you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" "He is worthy of death," they answered. Then they spit in his face and struck him with their fists. Others slapped him and said, "Prophesy to us, Messiah, who hit you?" Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," she said. But he denied it before them all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he went out to the gateway where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." He denied it again with an oath, "I don't know the man." After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away." Then he began to call down curses, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and he wept bitterly. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people made their plans how to have Jesus executed. So they bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied. That's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priests picked up the coins and said, It is against the law to put this into the treasury since it is blood money. So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. That is why it's been called the Field of Blood to this day. Then what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field as the Lord commanded me. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, Are you the king of the Jews? You have said so, Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you? But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time they had a well-known prisoner whose name was Jesus, Barabbas. So when the crowd gathered, Pilate asked them, Which one do you want me to release to you, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Messiah? For he knew it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message, Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. Which of the two do you want me to release to you? Asked the governor. Barabbas, they answered. What shall I do then with Jesus who is called the Messiah? Pilate asked. And they answered, Crucify him. Why? What crime has he committed? Asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, Crucify him. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. I am innocent of this man's blood, he said. It is your responsibility. All the people answered, His blood is on us and on our children. Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand. Then they knelt in front of him and mocked him. Hail, King of the Jews, they said. They spat on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There they offered Jesus wine to drink mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots, and sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him, This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. 2 rebels were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God. In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders mocked him. He saved others, they said, but he can't save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him, for he said, I am the Son of God. In the same way, the rebels who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over all the land. About 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, he's calling Elijah. Immediately one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. So here we are. It's Passover. Happy Passover. This is a really powerful time. I'm of the belief that when billions, there might be 1 billion people that follow the Christianity, the Christian faith, and also since it's Passover, we have the Hebrew population celebrating Passover. So this is a very powerful time. It's a very powerful time for prayers. It's a very powerful time for reflection. You see, I'm dressed like I'm going to a funeral. It's a time to acknowledge death. It's a time to acknowledge death of the physical as not being the end. And the story of Jesus' crucifixion is a story that had to happen in order for humans to get that we are immortal beings and that death is not the end. That we are all made of this divine spirit, and Jesus was the epitome of that. So during these incredible times of great turmoil, it's important to remember that death isn't the end, that the crucifixion, that what we see people going through now are, human civilization, just struggling with the wrath of evil and death and destruction. And when we read the story of Jesus, we see what happened. We recognize that what happened to him was he was at the receiving end of evil and ignorance and violence and a mob and people that rioted and people that said that he had no right to call himself the Son of the Most High, even though he never said that he was the only one. So they mocked him for the prophecy that he was the King of the Jews. They mocked him for that. They bullied him, and Jesus did nothing to deserve that. And we see that story being played out right in front of us in Ukraine. The innocents, and other wars too, innocents who had done nothing wrong, people who had, and people arrested in countries that are run by evil dictators, having done no wrong. Maybe they said a word and they're cast into prison. So these times that like Jesus lived in are still with us, and the message is the same. The message is always that we hold on to our faith, like the Ukrainian people. We hold on to our convictions, we hold on to our values, and we hold on to our God, no matter what. So we're going to take a little time now to go into prayer, and then we'll do some more music before we close, and I'll talk a little bit more about the significance of the crucifixion and the resurrection in our own lives. I've never met a person that hasn't been through their own personal crucifixion and resurrection. So let us pray. If you could close your eyes with me and take a deep breath, just connecting with the presence and the energy of those others that are praying right now and that are in reflection and prayer. Dear God, we thank you for this fellowship on this sacred Good Friday, recognizing that as we follow the Christian story of Jesus, that all faiths and all religions have their version of such stories too, acknowledging that we are all spiritual beings and we are all from divine love. And we take a moment now in this fellowship to bring to mind in a moment of silence those in our lives that need our prayers and those in other people's lives that we know need our prayers. So let's just take a moment of silence to think of them and offer up our prayers. Dear Lord, we ask you to give us the courage to be beacons of light and of your love and your peace. We ask you to give us even a tiny morsel of the faith that Jesus had in you, that no matter what things were happening, he held fast to you. And he understood the divine plan for his life. And he taught us to also understand that we are all here with a plan, with your plan, dear God. And we ask you to give us the courage and the strength to break through all our crucifixions from the past, all those crucifixions that we have had in our personal lives that have dragged us down. We ask you, dear Lord, to have us drop the cross that we bear, all the crosses that we've carried for so long. And we know, dear God, that you are aware of what we have been through. And you are aware too of how difficult it can be to let go and to forgive and to have trust and faith in you. Dear God, we know that when we are able to do this even a little bit, we change the frequency of our vibration, which affects everybody else. We remember that when Jesus entered into a village, the energy of that village, the entire village changed. We know that that is possible for us with our presence. We ask us to show us the way. We know that you are all good and all loving, and all we have to do is open our hearts and let it in. Help us to find time for the stillness, time to be with you, and help us to truly know that this is the way. Being with you, God, is the way to that inner peace. No matter what we need to break through, we can be there. We ask for you to stop this war, stop the suffering. We pray for those who are grieving. We pray for those who are suffering great traumas in Ukraine and all around the world. We ask for us to be agents of change, to heal human suffering. And we put our faith and trust in you as we close this prayer and lift our prayers up to the light. We know that they are done, and so it is. Okay, so this Holy Week, these Holy Week services are not as formal as the Sunday service in terms of being all, according to a certain program. So I'm going to play a little bit more, and feel free to put any prayer requests up there that you may have. And I'm going to play a really old, this is actually an African American spiritual, and you may know it. So in the Bible story, there was the crucifixion scene. If you grew up with any Christian religion, you might, that story I'm sure is very familiar to you, the story of Jesus' crucifixion. And this is a song that kind of sets the scene. It's called On the Willows. Taking a risk and playing it. It's from Godspell, so hope they keep it up on YouTube. So the words are, on the willows there we hung up our lives, for our captors there required. Of us songs and our tormentors mirth. On the willows there we hung up our lives, for our captors there required. Of us songs and our tormentors mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. Sing us one of the songs of Zion. Sing us one of the songs of Zion. But how shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? I believe that's from the Gospel according to Matthew. And it goes like this. So, I know in my own life, I've had crucifixion and resurrection. And I want you to take a moment, all you out there that are listening, take a moment and let's just do a little reflecting on our own personal challenges. Those challenges when we got through with the faith and the peace that eventually surpassed all understanding. The miracle that may have occurred, maybe at the darkest hour, when you held on to faith and you pulled through. That's what Jesus had. In the midst of the crucifixion, that's what Jesus had. So let us take a moment and give thanks for those crucifixions that we made it through by grace. Let us have faith that all the darkness that we are encountering in our world, on the domestic front, wherever you may be, on the world stage, all the evil that we face, and let us have faith that the light and the love and the healing that resurrected Jesus Christ, can resurrect us. And we've seen it happen in our own lives if we really look. Maybe it's obvious, maybe for some it's not as obvious. I understand that when the darkness is very, very, very dark and just so confusing, that's when we really seek the light. And I believe that that's when more light becomes available to us. So let us be in that awareness that no matter what darkness the world is going through, that the Christ can resurrect us. And we may be actually in a time where we're being given no further choice except to cry out to God. And Jesus in his humanness cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" as I read in the Bible. But he still had faith. And that was a human moment for Jesus. That was a very human moment. And we all have that moment. Why is this happening? Why have you forsaken me? Dear God, I thought you were good. What's going on here? Why is there all this suffering? I believe it's because we're supposed to experience the resurrection, and that brings the most faith of all. So let us close. I'm going to close with what we always close with on Sundays with Church of Spirituality. And it's the little saying from Ernest Holmes. I apologize, I can't see the chat, but I'll look later. So at the end of Church of Spirituality, we always say this by Ernest Holmes. I read from this quote from The Science of Mind. "Through the long night watches, God's hand clasps ours. At the break of dawn, God's hand clasps ours. In the daytime of work and endeavor, from eternity to eternity, God's hand clasps ours. When time shall have passed, when eternity shall be strewn about like falling petals, and space and worlds shall be swallowed up in everlasting blessedness, God's hand shall clasp ours," and so it is. I so appreciate you being here. This is the second year that I have observed Holy Week with Church of Spirituality, which is my online church here. And I will be back tomorrow night at 8:30. And on Easter Sunday, 8:30 Eastern Time. And on Easter Sunday, I will be doing a sunrise service, and then I'll be doing another service at 1, as usual. So thank you so much for being here. Please share if these words were helpful to you. And thank you for participating in this Holy Week journey. Happy Passover if you're Jewish and celebrating Passover. And take some time to reflect. We need more time of reflection in our world to, really tap into what's going on and to pray. And enjoy the full moon. I noticed that mine went out again. So, namaste. See you tomorrow, 8:30, Holy Saturday.